Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're unlocking a really fascinating secret language. We're going to look at the actual blueprints used to design literally the most complex structures ever created by human hands, VLSI microchips. If you've ever found yourself wondering how engineers manage to translate logical ones and zeros into physical, working silicon without creating just a chaotic, short-circuiting mess, you are absolutely in the right place. We're going to demystify the layout design rules that make all of modern computing possible. You know, a microscopic die shot like this bears an uncanny resemblance to an intricate, sprawling metropolis viewed from a satellite, doesn't it? You've got these massive highways of data, you have intricate side streets, and these incredibly densely packed blocks of processing units. But unlike a regular city where a traffic jam just, makes you late for work, a single microscopic error in this silicon metropolis, like a wire placed just a fraction of a hair too close to another, means the entire chip is completely dead on arrival. Okay, let's dive right into this, because honestly, it brings up a massive question. How do engineers actually map out billions of these microscopic connections without a single catastrophic short circuit? How do you even begin to organize something that is this incredibly dense? Well, the answer lies in a very specific set of rules. It's a visual grammar that keeps everything perfectly in check.
So here is our roadmap for this explainer. Part 1, the language of microchips. Part 2, the rules of silicon. And finally, Part 3, building basic logic gates.
Let's start with Part 1, the language of microchips, stick diagrams and mask layers. So, before we can build our silicon city, we've got to learn the local language. To keep things organized, engineers use a strict, color-coded system that maps directly to the physical mask layers on the silicon itself. Think of these kind of like the different utilities in city planning. Green and yellow represent our foundations. These are the N-diffusion and P-diffusion active areas, basically where the actual semiconductor magic happens. Red is our polysilicon layer, which acts a lot like traffic gates controlling the flow of current. Blue is metal 1, and that forms the massive power grid and the routing highways across the whole chip. And finally, we have brown, which represents the P-well edge. Think of that as a crucial city limit or a strict demarcation line. Now, these colors translate into actual structural rules. When you're drawing stick diagrams, which show the length-to-width ratio, source drain, and gates, or when you're drawing the more geometric mask layouts, you have to follow strict placement guidelines. The ultimate critical rule of the land is this. Your P-type transistors absolutely must sit above that brown demarcation line, and your N-type transistors must sit below it. This rule keeps the different foundational materials cleanly separated and literally prevents the chip from destroying itself.
Moving right along to Part 2, the rules of silicon, dimensions and scaling.
So we've got our colors and our basic placement. Next, we need our strict dimensions. And central to these rules is a genuinely brilliant concept called lambda. Lambda is basically a scalable, dimensionless unit used in VLSI layout. Why is this such a big deal? Well, technology moves fast, right? Every few years, manufacturing processes shrink, which lets us build smaller and smaller transistors. If engineers designed chips using absolute measurements, like millimeters or micrometers, they'd have to completely redraw billions of connections from scratch every single time the tech shrunk. Lambda totally solves this by acting as a universal, proportional metric. Comparing these approaches really shows why Lambda is kind of magic. Lambda-based rules offer proportional scaling. If your manufacturing process gets smaller, you simply redefine the real-world size of one lambda, and boom! Your entire blueprint perfectly scales down without a single redesign. It's incredibly flexible. In contrast, micron-based rules use fixed, absolute dimensions, like setting a minimum diffusion width to exactly 0.6 micrometers. That's super rigid. It's permanently tied to one specific manufacturing process. If you upgrade your factory, you basically have to throw your micron-based blueprints in the trash and start all over. Let's break down exactly how these lambda rules dictate the layout. We have the design rules for our foundational diffusion layers, the green and yellow, and our polysilicon gate layer, the red. Notice the math here. The minimum width for both a diffusion trace and a poly trace is strictly set to 2 lambda. But check out the spacing. To prevent interference, you must leave a 3 lambda gap between 2 green diffusion lines. However, you only need a 2 lambda gap between 2 red poly lines. It is a highly precise, proportional geometry. And these rules apply directly to standard NMOS and PMOS transistors too, which feature a completely uniform 2 lambda length and width for the gate, perfectly matched. The source and drain regions, they also extend exactly 2 lambda on each side. Now, a depletion mode NMOS does require a unique modification. While its length is still 2 lambda, its channel width is significantly wider, extending out to 6 lambda.
So the crucial takeaway here is how these different layers interact when they cross paths. When a red polysilicon line crosses a green diffusion line to create a gate, it can't just stop at the edge. The rule actually dictates that the poly must overlap and extend past the active area by exactly 1 lambda. This ensures that even if there's a tiny, microscopic manufacturing misalignment, the gate still fully crosses the channel, and the transistor actually works. We also see rules for our blue metal routing, which requires a very straightforward 2 lambda width and 2 lambda spacing.
Which brings us to part 3, building basic logic gates. Assembly sequence.
All right, we have our color-coded materials and we've got our mathematical zoning laws. Now for the really fun part. Let's assemble these pieces into working logic gates. This beautifully illustrates the elegance of chip design, the CMOS inverter. An inverter simply takes an electrical signal and flips it. A 1 becomes a 0. Notice how the red polysilicon trace forms a single shared input gate. It just winds its way down, crossing both the yellow PMOS active area at the top and the green NMOS active area at the bottom. Breaking down the architecture of this inverter, we see our crucial placement rules working perfectly. The yellow PMOS is strictly above the demarcation line and the green NMOS is strictly below it. That shared red poly gate perfectly bridges them as a single input. Furthermore, notice the blue metal 1 layers. They act as our power infrastructure. The solid blue line up top provides VDD, or the positive voltage supply, and the blue line at the bottom connects to VSS, or ground. The final inverted output is then just drawn right out from the common drain node that connects the 2 transistors. Let's move along and see how this builds into something slightly more complex, a 2-input NAND gate. Now, a NAND gate requires 2 inputs, labeled A and B. To build this logic, we need 2 PMOS transistors placed in parallel, connected to our VDD power at the top. You can see this where the yellow diffusion area bridges across the 2 red poly inputs. Then at the bottom, we need 2 NMOS transistors placed in series, connecting to VSS ground. Here, the green diffusion area sits in a straight line, intersected by the 2 red poly gates, one right after the other. Now let's contrast that directly with a 2-input NOR gate. The logic is totally inverted from the NAND, right? So the physical layout essentially flips. Our PMOS transistors up top are now arranged in series, meaning the red poly gates chop the yellow diffusion into sequential segments. Meanwhile, down at the bottom, our NMOS transistors are now placed in parallel, side by side in the green diffusion layer. By simply reorienting whether our foundation layers are in series or parallel across our red poly gates, we entirely change the logical function of the hardware. It's honestly just incredible to think about, isn't it? We just walked through how a few simple colored lines, governed by super strict proportional lambda math, can essentially snap together to form an inverter, a NAND gate, and a NOR gate. And these are the fundamental building blocks of literally all digital logic. So, I want to leave you with this thought to ponder today. If you can reliably build a functioning NOR gate using these exact visual rules, what kind of sprawling microscopic metropolis could you bring to life if you seamlessly connected a billion of them together? Well, the answer is the very device you're using to watch this explainer right now. Thanks so much for learning with us, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.